Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Barbells, the Banter podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly. Today I'm joined by my special guest, Kimberly Verbeke. I got that right. I knew I was going to. How are you, Kimberly? How are you doing in Central America, right?
Yes, I'm in Texas. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
And I imagine Texas is a hell of a lot warmer at a nice, pleasant afternoon than where I am here in northern England as well. It's not even the nice part. It's rainy. It's cold. I've got a few layers on here.
It's sunny and like 80 degrees here. It's nice.
Yeah, to rub it in a little bit more. Ironically, most of my podcast listeners, including people who've been listening to this, and I don't know why, probably because I've had a lot of guests from Canada. So I'm complaining, and a lot of my listeners are far, far colder than either of us, I think.
I was just up in Jackson, Wyoming, this past week, and it was supposed to be they're supposed to be getting snow there this week. So I'm just escaped the snow.
It will come where I am as well. I live in the highest town. The highest town in England, so snow is very, very possible. Not only possible, but probable within the next few weeks, I would imagine. So, Kimberly, you are a naturopathic practitioner, right? And obviously, I've got a bit of an idea about this, but for some of the listeners, they might be a bit unsure about what a naturopathic practitioner is. So, just tell me a little bit about that and then how you got into it.
Sure. So essentially, as a naturopath, right, we're taught to look at root cause. If you have an issue, right, like let's just say your blood pressure's high, I don't want you to have to get a drug to lower it. I want to know why it's going up. Is it a mineral issue? Is it, what's happening in the vascular system? Is it a blood sugar issue? Is it, there are reasons that these things happen. And so my goal is to address the root cause so your body can heal and you can move on with your life and not worry about your blood pressure.
Yeah, no. I mean, my business partner's big on this. And he's I guess he's a holistic therapist in a way. He's also a personal trainer, but he transitioned into he did all his courses over from the States because obviously it's a lot bigger. There's a lot bigger holistic sort of therapies, are far bigger and widely accepted stateside than it is here. And I would imagine that's mainly because of our limited NHS that we have here. It's very here's a problem, here's a pharmaceutical drug, off you go. But I do find ever since COVID, I do find there's much more awareness about things like that, and my business partner's always been a huge advocate for like your gut being the second brain. That's what he likes to call it, and a lot of our health problems could be answered from our gut, from intestinal, from our nutrition, what we're putting in our body. And I've studied a lot into this since then. I've had health issues recently in the last year. A lot of my listeners know I was diagnosed with a brain tumor a year ago, and while thankfully it wasn't cancer according to the biopsy, it's woke me up, it's humbled me in a way. And as a fitness professional, I've kept myself quite healthy and fit, and I watched it happen from the fitness side. After I had brain surgery, and the next day I was just up and about. And there was a lot of people on my ward that, were overweight, not eating. You can tell they weren't the healthiest. And, they was really struggling. I was just up and about, walking down to my MRI the next day. And at first I was like, oh, that's because I exercise. It's because I keep myself fit. But in actual fact, I've started to really treat my body like a temple ever since that. And that's why I say it's humbling. And I'm very cautious. And what I've noticed personally, Kimberly, since I've started doing that, is now if I do eat unhealthy food, or if I fall back into any habits that I kind of overlooked before, I really feel it. like it can make me really unwell, and
Yeah.
it's made me go, wow, like this is real stuff. Like what I'm putting into my body has a massive factor on health, and I think that can be a bit of a hard pill to swallow, I guess, for a lot of people. And I think that comes down to accountability.
Yes. Personal accountability, personal responsibility. Yes.
Yeah, and so yeah, for me, I have a bit of an idea, and hopefully, people listening have got a bit better idea of what a naturopathic practitioner is. And I know your focus is all about this, the term longevity.
Mhm.
Um, so, as far as that side of things, like what do we mean when we say like longevity in this field, and more importantly, how did that become a passion for you? What made you really not only delve into this, but do it as a practice, make it your life?
Yeah, so I was raised very holistic. I started out wanting to be a medical doctor,
Right.
and I worked in a nursing home, and I gave medication and shots. And I always tell people, when you start out at end of life, you see exactly what you don't want. It's so eye-opening, right? Here in the US in particular, we're really good at keeping people alive for a long time with a
Yeah.
really low quality of life. And I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
I think anybody in their right mind isn't interested in that. Like, there's a difference between being alive and living. And I became more and more interested in longevity, having had that experience, and then just kind of moving through life, right? And you see people getting older and their quality of life just declining significantly. And I don't believe we were made for that. I think we've created an environment that's very toxic to us, and it impacts our health and our longevity. And so people just, get older and sicker, and the quality of foods that many people are eating, the lack of exercise and movement, the lack of time outdoors. There's just a whole bunch of things that are impacting our health. And, all of that kind of cumulatively really gave me a deep interest in longevity, and kind of looking at other countries and other how things are done, and thinking about how, like, my grandparents lived a long time and were very healthy until pretty close to the end of life, and going, all right, what are we doing now that, yeah, we can keep people alive, but I don't want somebody to feed me, and I don't want someone to change my diaper, right? Neither one of those sound great to me. So, yeah, that's kind of starting out in geriatrics is kind of what brought me here. All of that just kind of led me, to have a real deep interest in what, the term I like,
Mm.
which is health span, right? Let's stay alive a long time if we're
Yeah.
healthy.
And it's funny, isn't it? Like whenever I've had people with very unique areas of focus, practice, and I ask them
Mhm.
questions like that. Like, how did you get into it and stuff? There's always a reason. There's always an experience, and no one just goes one day. Oh, I fancy trying something new, and walking into something like this. Like, no, it comes from deep experience, in whether environmental, whether it's personal, or to friends, family. Um, and I'm kind of the same as what got me into my career. I didn't just wake up one day and go, "Oh, I fancy becoming a fitness professional." No, like there was personal things in my life that led me to. And then when I watched the transformation in other people's lives, it just confirmed to me what I already know. And I imagine that's happened to you. Since you've been putting this into practice, I imagine you've seen it
Mhm.
firsthand, what the work is doing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's from my experience there to, I always loved being active. I started lifting weights at 15. When I was in my 20s, I got into endurance sports, and ended up kind of
Yeah.
running myself ragged. Um, ended up doing, there is such a thing as too much.
Yeah.
um, you know, I always tell people, like, someone will say to me, oh, like, this person runs marathons. They're the healthiest person I know. And I'm like, they're probably not. They're fit.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're healthy, right? Two different things. And so I went through some of my own health struggles and had to work really hard to get my health back and learn some balance and to listen to my body, like when it was too much, to go, this needs to be a rest day, like an actual rest day, not just a easy 5-mile run, um, being able to look at it from a standpoint of, again, longevity and understanding like where the growth and the really magnificent part of fitness comes in the rest after we've worked out hard, right? And sometimes that's kind of hard to piece together. Well, if I just go harder, I'll get where I want to get. But
I say it to people, I said it to a client just today, actually, because I had someone, they might be listening to this, but they messaged me, and understandably, they'd be like, things were working before, they'd worked with me for a couple of months, they were dropping lots of weight, they were feeling great, and then all of a sudden it's like plateaued, it's stopped. And he was saying, I've had a cold, I've been a bit poorly, I've not been sleeping. Whoa, go back. What did you say? Yeah. Well, I've not been sleeping. I'm like, that's probably your answer. And people struggle to understand it, and I literally said, I'm like, don't be mistaken to thinking that more is more. Sometimes less is more when you're trying to change your body. And I think society is conditioned that you just got to. What another term that I hate in the fitness world is no pain, no gain. I really don't like it because there's some truth to it, but unfortunately, it's been twisted into you have to really push yourself through whatever that might be, not just in exercise, but through dietary restriction, really torment yourself to. And whilst the body is an incredible instrument and it is designed to adapt, it's what we've evolved to do, you have to give your body time to do that bit. And if you're just constantly pushing yourself, and that's why I say to people, sleep is the most overlooked. Well, it's usually two for me. I find it's hydration and sleep. And I've noticed that more personally now because I'm epileptic now as a result of the tumour. I think I have been my whole life, but more noticeably now I've been diagnosed. And two things that will set me off is if I don't get enough sleep and I'm not hydrated enough. And it's funny that two such simple daily parts of our life can be overlooked and society's made that harder. Technology, longer working hours, and again this idea that you've just got to go. And I said to that client today, I'm like, maybe that's where your problem is. You're trying to grow muscle, you're trying to change your body shape. In order to do that, you need to rest. If you're trying, well, should I hit more steps? Shall I do more work? Should I do 2 workouts in one day? No, no. Yeah,
you need to sleep. Take a nap. I think people really underestimate the value of sleep. I always tell people that I'm working with that sleep is the cornerstone. It is the foundation of your health. If you're not sleeping, there are a lot of things that aren't happening that should be. And so get your sleep right, and your body's going to start to heal and repair, and you're going to start to see improvements. I mean, just from a caloric intake point of view, right? You know the statistics. When you don't sleep well, you typically ingest an additional 30% in calories. That's huge. You're not going to lose weight on that, right? And understandably, the body's looking for energy. It didn't get rest, so it's looking for energy. And it knows food is good energy. And usually the things we're hungry for when we haven't slept are refined carbohydrates, sugar, things that give us that quick hit of energy. And so getting your sleep right is everything. And hydration.
I'm so glad you've said that because, like I said, it's something I preach a lot. And I think it kind of goes in one ear and out the other a lot because a lot of the time and we're going to get into the good stuff about protein shortly, Kimberly, but one thing that I struggle with is on morning television here, particularly in the UK, we'll have some TV doctors that will go on morning TV and they'll say a lot of bogus
Mhm.
claims revolving, say, protein. Oh, the average person's eating far too much. We should only be eating sort of 40 gram of protein. And I'm there raging at the screen, like, because unfortunately, we might have 14
Yep.
to 20 million people watching that. And I'm like, they're getting the wrong information because a doctor said on TV, we're eating,
Mhm.
and I'm like, who are you working for? Of course, protein. We
Yep.
we
Yes.
are highly, highly deficient in protein. That's part of the problem, and we're going to get into that. I know it's something that you want to share as well. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I completely agree, and hopefully anyone listening to this will agree. Has already experienced this because particularly as the seasons change. Here we have daylight savings. There's a condition called
Mhm.
SAD, right? Seasonal depression.
Mhm.
We know the affective disorder, and I understand a lot of that is going to be to do with vitamin D as well, and it's also going to do with a lot of how we've evolved. Daytime, nighttime. And I understand that's going to have an impact on your immune system. It's going to have an impact on your sleep.
Mhm.
But I think they're tied into one. I cannot. I've really studied it a lot. Ever since this happened to me, I've really looked into a lot of things about treating, like I said
Mhm.
before, treating my body like a temple. And I've really punished
Yeah.
myself over the years with not sleeping properly, barely drinking water, drinking the wrong fluid. Um, and
Wow.
since I've been very mindful of it, I'm feeling so much better. And now I'm trying to share that with the world and go, look, it's simple, simple stuff. And here on my program, which a lot of these guys are listening to now, I think someone's just given a little love heart on the stream. It's on YouTube, so I can't see who you are because my Facebook isn't working, guys. But thanks for that. But yeah, the way I get my clients' results, I don't claim to have a magic wand. It's free, mate. I call it the holy trinity of lifestyle habits. One is
Mhm.
obviously move, okay, calories, but not obsessing with calories, but more just moving. Because not only is daily
Mhm.
activity or non-exercise activity thermogenesis so important, but it's great for your mind. Going for walks, it clears your mind, which is also good, releases a lot of dopamines and serotonin. Two is
Mhm.
protein, which we'll get to. Three
Mhm.
is water, and I call them my holy trinity of how I get my clients' results. There's no magic
Mhm.
formula. There's no secret sauce. It literally is master those three habits before you even worry about doing workouts in your living room or going to the gym. I love a gym. I own a gym. I think gyms are fantastic, but they are intimidating. And if you don't know
Yeah.
what you're doing, it can cause you more harm. I it's those three things, and I kind of had sleep. I had some extra on sleep, meditation. Obviously, trying to get your 5 a day fruit and veg and fiber, etc. We can go a long list, but those are the three that I've built my entire
Mhm.
all my programs, all my service on, and why I've got people results. And I'm quite humble, I'm modest about it. That's all it is, guys. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just telling you what you already know. Now I'm making it a bit more fun and making it a bit more exciting, so that you'll go ahead and do it. You know,
Yeah. I totally agree with you. People want there to be a magic button or a magic sauce or where's the magic thing I'm going to do? And I'm like, it's not. It's really boring,
yeah.
basic stuff. And you can choose to fall in love with it or you can fight it. It's up to you.
Either way, it's not going to change the outcome. That is
Yeah.
the Holy Trinity, as I call it. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the peptide bioregulators with you, Kimberly, because this is something quite new to me. Um, so I know
Okay.
that peptide bioregulators are a unique area of focus, particularly in your practice.
Mhm.
So could you explain what
Mhm.
they are to the audience and how they support the body's aging process? Because we'll talk a little bit about the aging side as well.
Absolutely. So, right, we have proteins, which are very long strings of amino acids. We have the standard peptides that people are familiar with, things like VPC 157 or CJC or GHK. There's a whole bunch of them, right? Those are kind of standard peptides. And then we have something called peptide bioregulators. And they were discovered by Dr. Kavinson over in Russia over 40 years ago. They've been clinically studied for over 40 years. And they are very, very short chains of amino acids. So either 2, 3, or 4 amino acids strung together. So tiny. That's part of the magic, is they're so small, they're able to cross that cellular and nuclear membrane and bind to the DNA. And it's what they upregulate certain proteins. And I heard Dr. Kavinson in a lecture he was giving describe peptide bioregulators as retreading the tires. Which I thought was a really lovely description. I also heard Dr. Bill Lawrence, who is the person that I learned about them through. I came across his research. He's a scientist, and he had learned about Dr. Kavinson's work, went to Russia, studied with him. He's doing clinical research also on these bioregulators here in the US. And I heard him describe them in a way that I thought was really easy for people to understand. And it is peptide bioregulators repair the repair systems in our body. So, right, as we age, I always explain it to people like this. When we're young, our metabolic rate is up here and disease is down here. And as we age, those two shift, right? Our metabolic rate slows down. And so it can't keep up with the things that we're exposed to. And that's when disease starts to set in. And so these peptide bioregulators, they're literally just amino acids that are used. There are ones for every system of the body. And the research that's been done on them over in Russia is astonishing. I heard Dr. Kavinson say that he had treated thousands and thousands of patients with them and never had an adverse reaction because they're literally just amino acids. They know that for every year someone is using those bioregulators, so if they put someone on them for a year, they would see about a 7-year decrease in their biological age. When they had people on them for 2 to 3 years, that seemed to be kind of a sweet spot. And they were seeing that people lived typically an additional 15 years, and they were also healthier, right? Because you've repaired these repair systems. And so what I do with them is I will do a true diagnostic test on someone. It tests DNA methylation and telomere length. Do that at the beginning. It also is going to kind of tell us each system of the body, what biological age it is. And then we can tailor that 12-month program to you and what's going on with you based on your medical history, your test results, how you're feeling, what symptoms you're having. And then after 12 months, retest and see, where we've seen a lot of improvement in the body. And so it's a really fun area of focus. I think that, we all work so hard throughout our lives. I have no interest in getting to end, the later years of my life and being sickly. I want to have a really high quality of life. I still want to, I want to be in the 90s, in my 90s in the gym. I want to be lifting weights, going for walks, and doing all the things that I love now. And that just comes with prioritizing our health through, whatever means we can. The bioregulators are just a really cool, fun area of interest for me because they're not well known, but yet there's this massive amount of clinical data from Russia on them. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean it's the first I've really heard about it. Obviously, when we're talking about aminos and stuff, I'm very clued upon that. And for a lot of people that might be listening, but they might not even know what that term is. They just hear the term protein. They just associate protein with bodybuilding and getting, and it's like, no, like protein is the most important macronutrient in my opinion. And I mean, I love my carbohydrates, the body's favorite fuel source, regardless. However, and I don't like demonizing fats either, because I think there's so much confusion on fats as a macronutrient, because the word fats should be changed, because how close it is to body
Yeah.
fat, and that's where the scaring part is. But on protein, I've seen the changes, and people just think, oh, it's about growing and repairing the muscle tissue. I'm like, no, like amino acids, building blocks within protein, are repairing every cell in the body. They are, it's literally rocket fuel for the human body, and not only that, but then of course there's some benefits from eating higher protein sources, because they do increase metabolic rate. Your body has to break down a lot, particularly if there's a lot of fiber content as well. That's great. We're breaking all that down. Protein is usually very filling, which is usually going to lead to a calorie deficit as far as other things are concerned. So it's a win-win. This is again where GPs on TV, doctors come on and go, oh, kidneys and stuff. Compared to what most people are putting in their body on a weekly, sometimes daily basis, substances and alcohol and even too much caffeine, and they're worried about protein. They're worried about that's what's causing.
Yeah.
That's why I've got kidney pain. Creatine has the same rep.
Oh, totally.
I love my creatine. I love my BCAAs. And I push creatine a lot, because I own a personal training facility. People doing a lot of lifting. Okay, and particularly for an older demographic, even more so. I want them to take creatine and more increase the protein. Exactly. And they're like, oh, well, what is that? I'm like, well, it's not a steroid for one. Okay, the body produces it naturally, just not enough. And unless you want to eat 50 pounds of red meat every single day, you're going to need to take something. It's the most studied fitness performance supplement in the world. It's okay. Yes, all right, some studies have been taken on kidney stuff, but at the end of the day, that's probably got more to do with dehydration and the fact that people are, I'm taking creatine, well, I need to drink even more water than I was, and that's a bad thing, because what, again, back to the water and sleep issue. So I have a knowledge of that. So for those listening that may be first timers understanding what the peptides are, and I think I'm trying to layman it down for some of my listeners, and I know some of the people in my group that won't understand, but they'll be definitely interested. So I wanted to touch on obviously we got the bioregulators, which you've done a fantastic job of letting us all know, and how they also support with the aging. I'd like some of the studies you suggested, particularly you said biological, because I think when people think of reverse aging, they're kind of like, well, that's impossible. Well, hang on, we're not saying you're going to go Benjamin Button and go backwards, but there is because just the other way, Kimberly, which is like your body can biologically age quicker than your actual age, particularly if you're not looking after yourself. And I know there's other things involved as well. There'll be some hereditary aspects and stuff, but mainly it usually always comes down to how we're treating our body, doesn't it? That's affecting that.
Yes.
But for someone that's new to the sort of longevity science behind all this, what would be some key lifestyle changes or interventions that people need to make in their life, in addition to this, for adding more healthy years to their life, basically?
So my first one is always going to be prioritize your sleep. If your sleep's garbage, your health is going to be garbage at some point. So prioritize sleep. We're complicated houseplants. We need time outdoors. We were made for sunlight and clean air and all that. Hydration is really important. And when people get confused around food and they're like, I don't know what diet to eat, I feel like there's so much noise out in the world about diet, right? And people just are like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, look, let's start with eating real food? Let's start there, right? Great place to start. Do you recognize it? Do you know what it is? Okay, let's eat that. And then, maximizing your protein. And this isn't about being gym bros, but if you want to age well, you have to have adequate protein. We need a amino acid reserve to heal and repair. So if you're not getting enough protein, your body becomes catabolic. It's using its own muscle for those amino acids. And you'll find you don't heal well if you get an injury or you get sick. We need an amino acid reserve. And it becomes more important as we get older because it takes more protein to create protein synthesis in the muscle as we age, right? We know about 20 grams per meal when we're in our 20s. By the time we're 40, it takes 40 to 45 grams to create protein synthesis in the muscle. So that's a big difference. And I'm a huge fan. If you're like over 40, use an amino acid supplement. It is the cheapest form of protein you're going to get and really easy for your body to utilize, right? I think that can be super, super helpful in helping you hit that 1 gram. My goal is always 1 gram per ideal pound of body weight. The amount of people with kidney damage that can't do that is pretty slim. And obviously people typically know when they have a kidney issue. For the average person, protein is not harmful to your kidneys. One of the biggest things we do that's harmful to our kidneys is not drink enough water. We need water. And sometimes I will look at people's kidney markers and they're out of bounds. And I'm like, and then we start moving through their labs and I see chronic dehydration. And I'm like, well, tell you what, let's improve your hydration and see what your kidney markers look like in a few months. So, but I mean, protein is king. I totally agree with you in terms of diet, losing weight. Protein has a thermogenic effect, which makes it worth more like 3 calories per gram. It is satiating. Back to like diets being almost religious for people and people trying to figure out what to eat. I'm like, look, eat your protein first. When you eat your protein first, you don't overeat your fat and carbohydrates because you're full. So you're still going to get some of the other things you need, but you're not going to get too much of them, right? Because carbs are really palatable. Fat's really palatable. And so it's easy to overeat those.
And I think more so carbs, because fats contain more calories. I tend to find that depending on what fats, I think people eat. That's the thing with fats. People are associating or disassociating a piece of salmon versus a cheesecake. And I think that's where people. But again, it's usually. I've always thought of it as, do you know what? Fat's not necessarily bad. Carbs not necessarily bad. But when the two come together, that's when we're creating a problem. And they usually, of course, junk food usually has the two together. I tend to think carbs, even complex carbs, even simple sugars within reason is fine. But like you said, very palatable. They taste great, so that's going to release hormones in the brain that want more of that. I tend to find that a lot of food cravings tend to be environmental, in my opinion, and I've always said you don't see people walking down a main street eating a massive bar of chocolate. You might do. Maybe you do in Texas, but you don't hear. Where do people tend to want these things? When they're watching Netflix, when they're at home, warm, cozy, and then suddenly they start craving. And I tend to find that no one ever craves protein around those times. So I think that is, like you say, I think palatable is a perfect word. And also, moreish. But the thing is, carbs are... they're so easy to eat because they cause the body to release insulin so quickly, and it's like the body's like, it's so easy to overindulge in the calories. Fats are the same, but I tend to think because fats are naturally higher in calories anyway, that's the danger zone. So not only is protein great as a tool, for a dieting tool, and even then, I'd just say to people, I've tried, After I get it all the time, Kimberly. If I go out, and everyone knows. I mean, I only live in a small town here in the UK, and most people know what I do. And I couldn't go out and have a few drinks with friends without bumping into someone who knows what I do, and they'll ask me the same thing every time. How do I get rid of this? It's this
Mhm.
for me. It's my belly. All right, and they're shocked when I tell
Yeah.
them, "Have you tried stop shoveling garbage into your mouth?" And they'd look at me as if I'm going to come out with some sort of magic ab workout that if they do
Yeah.
5 times a week, it'll bliss through belly fat. And then the other times, a lot of other time, I'll get asked stuff about breakfast. What breakfast ideas have you got? Why? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Protein is
and
protein
and
is
then and
protein.
then yeah, the third one will be it won't be a question. It'll be more of an observation, a self observation. When they go, yeah, it's the diet for me. It's the diet for everyone. It's the diet. It's a diet for
You're not special.
everyone. Or when people say I'm all or nothing, mate, I have to cut out everything or not at all. I'm like, no, humans don't work like that. And they'll be like, no, it is for me.
Yeah.
I'm like that. I'm like, no. I probably know your human body better than you do, and I'm telling you now, habitually, it doesn't work like that. We're
Yeah.
built around habits, and you need to undo those habits and start
Totally.
adding new ones. And the first
Totally.
habit is eat more protein.
Yeah, absolutely. Or this is my favorite when somebody's like, "Oh yeah, I eat a lot of nuts for protein." I'm like, "What?" Say, "Huh?" Right? Because nuts
Yeah.
are so high fat, they're so high in calories. And I'm not saying don't ever eat nuts, but A, they are a
Mm.
low protein food. They're a high calorie food, right? So
Yeah.
eat them carefully.
Well, a lot of time, obviously, of course, we might have people listening that might be vegan, or even vegetarian, and that's understandable. I will get that a lot, particularly on my programs where people are like, well, how do I get the protein up? I understand that protein is important not only for my weight loss goals, my fitness goals, but for my overall health, and it is. That's the point we're trying to get across here. Is especially I've had podcast guests on that have all said the same thing. Particularly as we get over 50, protein's even more important than it was in our peak. Let's say people might be in a peak at the 50. They could be if they ate more protein into the diet. And I always set a target. I start by saying, look, 80 gram of protein to start off with, and I'll slowly increase that up perhaps to 100 gram. And I will get people, but I couldn't possibly eat that much. I'm like, no, the truth is that's not even scratching the surface on what you should be having. And then we're taking the body weight
Yeah.
into account. And if you're someone who may be slightly obese, or you a good 50 pounds heavier than what you should be, or above, it's like even more important to get that amount of protein. And then, of course, I think a lot of time
Yeah.
people could there'll be that battle between calories versus protein, where it's like, well, what's more important?
Hmm.
Being in a calorie deficit to be able to drop body fat, which is a non-negotiable. But then it's like,
Hmm.
but then Callum, you're also telling me that protein's the most important tool. What's more important, calories or protein? Like, I don't think there needs to be a one or the other. I think, like you just said, if you focus on a high protein diet,
Yeah.
the calorie deficit is going to come naturally anyway. So the easiest thing to do,
Yep.
rather than counting calories and becoming obsessed, and and because you're tracking foods that you enjoy, and suddenly you're like, oh my god, I'm never going to eat that ever again. I like Oreos. I like Oreos, right? And I know how many calories are in them, um, but at the same time,
Yeah.
yeah,
It
exactly.
works
But I
for
think actually, if you just try and increase your protein, if that's one habit you could start on, I'm not even worried about the calories because I know you're going to do it.
well, this is totally how I feel. I will literally say to people, they're like, "Well, do you want me to track my calories?" I'm like, "Do you
Yeah.
want to track your calories?" And 10 out of 10 times it's a no. So I'm like, "Listen, what I want you to do is track your protein for 1 week." Because what I often hear is, "Oh yeah, I'm getting close to that number." And people will track their protein and most of the time they're getting half or less than the protein they should be getting. And I'm like, all right, what I want you to focus on is increasing your protein until we hit this number. And you can use amino acids to help you get there. But I want you to focus on hitting your protein number. And I think the other thing that helps drive success there is you're not taking something away.
I'm all about
right?
implementation,
Because
not restriction. That's my kind of motto.
Because when you take away, people are like, give it to me, I have to have it. And so I'm like, whoa, no, you can have your carbs, you can have your fat, eat whole foods, and just eat your protein first. So I did a little study with my brother. He was here visiting, and we put a CGM on him, continuous glucose monitor. And I said, okay, I want you to eat your steak before you have any of your baked potato. We went to dinner and he got a big ribeye steak and a loaded baked potato. And I said, I just want you to see what happens to your blood sugar when you eat your steak first. And he was shocked by how little impact the baked potato had when he ate the protein first. So that's just one more way that it's beneficial, is you're going to get satiated. He didn't even finish his baked potato, and he's a big guy. He's like 6'3", he's just a big muscular guy. The protein is so satiating, you're like, I'm full, I'm good. But the part of the potato he did eat had very little impact on his blood sugar, because it was just
rather
like
than spiking and having, and I mean, we could go on for another hour just talking about the benefits of protein. I have no doubt. I'm a massive advocate of it. I try and make it my primary focus when I wake up. A lot of people are like, what can I have? I'm like, well, milk to start with. Anything dairy will work. Eggs, you can't go wrong with eggs because that's great for breakfast. I'm still a part of that old bodybuilding mentality of the people that I know. Many bodybuilders that still go for the good old steak and eggs for breakfast. For some reason, it's all in the more last few decades. It's become more about cereal, and that seems to be the normal for breakfast. I'm like, what happened to good old fashioned steak and eggs for breakfast? I can't have that in the morning first thing, because then I'll get people saying, I can't really eat first thing in the morning. I'm like, you need to.
And like, getting them to understand, like, if you wake up and you have no appetite, again, what's happening in the body, that it's stressed out and you're not getting those cues for hunger, right? Because if you've fasted for a good period of time, in theory,
you mentioned about
catabolism
before, and I think that's again trying to get people to understand that when you're like, I'm not hungry in the morning. I'm like, because your body's having a great feast on its own muscle tissue overnight. That's why. And another reason for that is because you're under eating calories is a big one that shocks people when I talk about weight loss plateaus. And it's usually week 3, week 4 of any kind of fitness program that I'll do, in person or online. It's the same principle. People might start off with a lot of weight loss at first. For the most part, that's water weight. But people, I don't like to burst people's bubbles about that. So it's like, yeah, well done, And then we start hitting fat, which is actually a lot harder to burn through. And it's also made harder by the fact that, again, we spoke earlier on this podcast about people thinking that more equals more. If they punish their body more, if they starve themselves more, if they overwork out, if they run 10K every day, that means more quicker weight loss. When actual, what people don't realize is, whoa, no, like, that's too much overload that your body isn't prepared to adapt to. And the same applies with nutrition, I think. If you're under eating your calories because you're so desperate to try and lose weight quicker, then your body's going to pull energy from somewhere else. And the body is very resourceful. It's not going to use fat cells. It's thinking, well, hang on, muscle tissue is keeping me alive, is burning a lot more energy. You're starving me, so I'm going to have to get my energy from somewhere else. And when I think when we say it like that, it makes sense. But for some reason, it just doesn't quite land, does it, with people? I think people are still in that mentality you mentioned before, which is why I got onto this, because I completely agree about taking away. And I think it's because people like to follow rules. People like rules to follow. So if you're telling me if I just stop eating this, I'll get results. Why do people have such a problem with adding habits instead of removing everything? Do you think there's some psychology behind that where, you know?
I think we're used to things being taken away. Like the only way to lose weight is to take away. And so I try to, I get a lot of middle-aged women that are already eating. I mean, they're very, very little lean
Yeah.
body mass, right? They're skinny, skinny fat. They're approaching it through the wrong lens, right? They have the right intentions, but they're cardio queens and they're significantly cut their calories. They have a salad for lunch and a little piece of chicken with some broccoli for dinner. And I'm like, wait, where's the rest of your protein coming from? And when you start giving them things, I mean, it's just retraining the brain, right? And talking about it through a lens of, that's okay. Last week was a tough week. Let's move on. What are we going to do this week? How are we going to be successful? And baby steps, like you said, okay, we're going to hit 80 grams for the next 2 weeks. And then after that, we're going to hit 100 grams. And slowly ramping that up, you start to ramp up the appetite. You start to, the metabolism's like, oh, hey, protein, right? That magic starts to happen. And when women in particular, I feel like when they start to see that shift in their body composition, which happens when you get adequate protein, they're like, oh, wait a second, I can eat food
It's
and be
amazing.
lean.
So that's when the penny drops, isn't it? It's amazing. So it's amazing to watch.
Yeah.
So we're speaking,
Yeah.
keeping with the protein synthesis, but talking about longevity, I know you're an advocate of incorporating strength training into that, a part of that longevity plan. Why is I know we talked a bit about the nutrition side. So why would you say that strength training is also important to improve that whole aging process? And improve the quality of life.
Well, I mean, muscle is a hormone signaling organ. Um, it is so tied to our longevity, right? Like there's been research done on quadricep strength and brain health. Muscle is, we've kind of wrongly been trained to think of muscle as an
I just
aesthetic,
want to rewind. Sorry, I
right?
want to
And
rewind on
it's,
this, and there's a reason for this. It's touching on what you just said. I've noticed something. I only said it to someone before we were talking about myself and my fitness, and I did only say to someone not that long ago, I'm like, do you know what? The biceps aren't even my best feature. For some reason, it's my quads, right? And I'm like, and I think
Mhm.
about what I do for a living, but I'm like, my bloodline truth, the most dominant aesthetic muscle in my body is my quads, and I'm not even a great lunger or squat. But I just want to touch on what you just said about brain health there. Um, so I wanted to
Yeah.
just pause you there, and can you just emphasise on that a little bit more? Because I'm curious about that one.
Yeah, I mean, there was research done, and I haven't read it for a while, so I can't like quote it word for word. I could find it for you, but there was research done on people, and they measured quadricep strength, and then did cognitive function and brain tests on people, and the more muscle mass people had on their quadricep as they age, the healthier the brain is. And I'm sure that has to do with the fact that think about solely
Yeah,
just circulation, right? If you're moving heavy weight, your blood's pumping, and guess what?
yeah,
It's pumping to your brain. It's our bodies were
yeah,
made to move, and strength isn't just something that makes dude look good in a t-shirt. It's what gives us our stability and our vitality for life. It gives us
yeah.
truly like energy, right? When you're strong, you can do things and they feel easy. When you're weak, everything feels hard. So I am the biggest fan of strength training, but if I have someone completely untrained coming in,
Yeah.
let's start with walking. let's get that down. We've got to get, I'm huge
Mm.
on the NEAT thing, right? Non-exercise activity threshold or thermogenesis, how, however you say it, but getting that movement in it.
Yeah.
Let's start there. If you want, like I just got a 20-pound rucking vest to wear because I have an injury right now, but I try to walk 6 miles a day. And I've done some different things with some weighted things, but I'm like, I'm going to get a heavier vest because I'm just going to get more
Yeah.
bang for my buck in my walk. And then when you get people walking regularly, then getting them doing some type of resistance training, if you want to age well, it is just,
Yeah.
it's a game changer.
And I think even with walking, yes, it is aerobic. It is a form of cardio. It's improving the cardiovascular system, respiratory system, but there's resistance there. Particularly if you do it gradient changes,
Absolutely.
people just think, oh, walking, oh,
Yep.
that's boring. No, I want to get fit. Like you just said, particularly if you're a very untrained individual, well, slow down. The best thing to do to get the blood flowing through the body, get that circulation up, and it is resistance. It is going to encourage muscle stimulus. It is going to encourage, yeah,
Animals.
absolutely. There will be some
Yeah.
anabolism there because the body is sensing. Oh, there's resistance, particularly if you're walking uphill, even just slightly. Um, and that is the very first thing that I get any of my clients to do in person. Um, you know, online, it doesn't matter. The very first thing I get anyone to do is move. Just move and walk. Not only is it great mentally, but you said something incredible before. Like, we are like houseplants. We need to be out in the sun. We need to be out in the daytime, getting the fresh air. Um, over this last year, Kimberly, for obvious reasons, I had to have my driving license surrendered for the year. Hopefully, I can get it back. But in this year, I've had a lot of time where I've been forced to walk a lot more than I normally would. I've enjoyed it. I've loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, I've missed my car. Of having that taken from me was hard. But that was more from an independent level. But honestly, I've enjoyed walking around everywhere far more than I ever thought I would do. And that's probably why my quads are great. And that's still thinking,
Walking's great. It's something you can do at any age. It's something you can do pretty much anywhere for free. If you've got a break over lunch, eat your lunch and then go walk for 10 minutes. Like it's so underrated because again, we've kind of been taught that like, oh, like you've got to go to the gym to work out or it's got to be a 10-mile run to be a work. No,
yeah,
just move. I even love the research that's being done around exercise snacking, right? Doing these little bits
yeah,
of exercise throughout the day. And so I'll tell, people that tell me they don't have time to exercise, which I'm going to argue that there are very few people
yeah,
that don't have
yeah.
time
We
to
could do a whole
exercise.
other
Okay.
hour on that one.
We, we could. My favorite thing my whole life has been, you're so lucky you have time to exercise. You're right. I am. I'm super lucky. I'm super lucky that I make time for it, right? You make time for your TV show. I make time for my
Yeah.
workout. Enough said.
What's I think
No.
isn't 15 minutes 1% of someone's 24-hour day? I'm pretty sure that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's just under 1%.
I'm not sure, but I mean that's my whole point. Like with this exercise snacking, they would have people do like, 20 lunges or I forget the numbers now, but like some push-ups in their
Mm.
office, like every hour, just do something that stimulates your muscle and gets your blood moving. And the
Yeah,
results were significant and it was virtually nothing, like so ridiculously small in terms of your day, but the benefits were wild. And so I just think that if you are looking for a place to start,
yeah,
nothing is too small. Take a 5-minute walk, do something, but move your body because our bodies break
yeah,
down when we're sedentary, right? In the psychology world, you're either moving or you're stagnant. And when you're stagnant, you're dying. And so, getting people to understand that movement is life, and I tell, because I have a lot of older people that come to see me, they'll say, "Oh, I've kind of quit doing this because it's hard." And I'm like, no, 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 no. When you stop doing things, you stop being
Yeah.
able to do things. So if it's something that you've done your whole life and all of a sudden it's hard, let's figure out why and fix that so you can continue to do it, right? Um, because being able to move easily throughout our lives is really
And
important.
I think people take that for granted until they can't.
Yeah, totally agree.
And I want to, so far, everything is just nodding my head because you're basically just relaying everything that I talk about on my podcast, everything that I talk about in my content on my social media to my clients. You're basically relaying it back to me and reconfirming the stuff that I already know and what my followers and my clients also know. One thing I wanted to get into a little bit though is about supplements and hormones, because I have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ladies of the menopause age, okay, that I work
Mm-hmm.
with, that follow me, listen to me, and hormones do play a massive factor. But I think people, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that people have a misunderstanding of the part that hormones, the endocrine system, plays in the body. It is the mothership, but it is controlled hormones. We can control our hormones in many different ways, and I tend to find that hormones can become an excuse a little bit sometimes. It's a bit like, oh, my hormones are this, so I am. It's like, well, no, hang on. It's not quite as simple as that. It's not like going, oh, I suffer with this. Yes, of course, when we're talking about diabetes, when we're talking about insulin resistance, there's loads of different things where we have to manipulate certain circumstances. But the reality is, there are things we can do to change, and I think that's where a lot of supplements can come in
Mm-hmm.
as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kimberly. So I just wanted to talk a little bit, touch on that as well when it comes to longevity. What are the essentials that you recommend overall for health and longevity? I know we've talked about a little bit of the aminos and peptide stuff. So yeah, just let us know a
Mm-hmm.
little bit about what, because I like supplements. I'm not a massive pusher of supplements. I always believe, and I know you probably do as well, Kimberly, but that diet and exercise conquers everything. That should be people's cornerstone. But there is a time and place,
Yes.
and particularly more so for some people more
Mm-hmm.
than others, where we need some extra supplementation coming in to help with stuff. We've already talked about a couple so far, creatine and the biohackers and stuff. So, and of course, whey protein as well. So, what would be your essentials that you'd recommend for people?
My go-tos are, I try to think about like what we tend to be missing in our diet, right? So I'm a huge, huge fan of desiccated beef organs as like a multivitamin. I love them. I find that so many people feel fantastic when you get them on there, and they have enough of certain things that it's not like so many multivitamins. I mean, it's fine if you're a toddler, but it's not enough for an adult. The doses in it are ridiculously small, so people don't feel any different. They also, you have to worry about, if it's made from, if your B vitamins are methylated, if you have genetic SNPs, things like that, where you don't with the beef organs. The other thing that I think most, like 99.9% of the people that I test are very deficient in magnesium. I think magnesium is a really
I had
valuable
a feeling
supplement.
that was the first one you were going to come out with, and I hear that a lot. And when I talked about my business partner before, I'll give a shout out to him because he will listen to this after. Because I've told him what you're about, so I know he'll be interested in listening to this if he gets to this part. But he's always said a lot about magnesium supplements, particularly when people have like sugar cravings and stuff. And he was like, "You're not actually craving sugar. That's actually a manifestation of a lack of a deficiency in a mineral, as opposed to actually craving sugar. Sugar. What are you addicted to when you say you're addicted to sugar? Sugar's energy. Sugar's pure
Yeah,
energy.
absolutely.
What people are addicted to is
Absolutely.
the other things that are accompanied by that sugar. That's why no one's robbing shops for pineapple. You know, no one's robbing grocery stores to get their fix of a watermelon. No, you know, it's not. No one's that addicted to it that it's that serious. But he said this many times that about lack of magnesium. That sometimes when our body displays these things like cravings and stuff, that actually it's our body's or our gut's way of letting us know that we're needing something. There's a deficiency there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. Magnesium's many times my go-to. I love magnesium glycinate, magnesium threonate. Those are probably my two favorite forms of magnesium. I am also a big fan of D3 and K2 together as we age, to drive calcium into the right places. Magnesium, vitamin D, and K2 all help drive calcium into the right places and keep them out of the wrong places. And then from there, I think it's kind of what's going on with you, right? So a lot of my perimenopausal women, I'm a big fan of adrenal support for them. I'll look at what their adrenals look like, and a lot of them are, just they're trying to do too much and they're not getting enough rest. And so the adrenals take a hit. And women have the only thing in the human body that atrophies when we go through menopause. The ovaries atrophy and the adrenals take over a good portion of hormone production, and you need them to be really robust and healthy to take on that extra job. And so adrenal support can be really beneficial for women.
And the adrenal gland releases cortisol as well, doesn't it? You know, it's not, people just think adrenal and they think, oh, it's all about adrenaline and buzzing. It's like, well, no, it releases stress hormones as well, which is another thing that too much. I mean, we mentioned the endocrine system before. It's this cocktail of hormones, which then has a manifestation on how we're feeling, how our body feels, and our health.
Absolutely. So, getting that right. And then, if your hormones are kind of struggling, you can do things that, support zinc for testosterone, right? There's all different nutritional pieces that help support specific hormones. Adaptogens are wonderful for supporting the endocrine system. But looking at things through the lens of supporting our body as we go through situations. And I absolutely believe there's a time and place for bioidentical hormone replacement, but you don't necessarily have to go down that road if you don't want to. There's a lot you can do to simply support the body doing its own work, by making sure it has all the pieces to the puzzle.
That makes complete sense. So, obviously people might be listening to this going, okay, I hear Kimberly and I'd be interested in these kind of supplements, but is there any do's and don'ts when people are going out looking for these kind of stuff? Like, is there things to avoid? How do people? Because there's so many companies, so many brands that are like, yeah, this. We talked about creatine before. That just good old fashioned creatine monohydrate was just what it needed to be. But now there's so many different ones, and creatine plus, and obviously it's a business. So, what would you recommend to people who are interested in this and like they want to go out and have a search themselves for these kind of supplements? And what are some do's and don'ts when shopping around for supplementation?
If you're overwhelmed by it, work with someone that knows. That is the easiest advice I can give you. If you're somebody that loves to do research, I will tell you, with most supplements, you get what you pay for. Not always, right? But I don't necessarily recommend going with the cheapest brand. Use a good, reputable company, someone that does third-party testing. Quality does matter. You want something that is going to break down and be digestible and utilizable. We're not just trying to pass it through our body and, have this really colorful urine. That is not the goal. So, if you're overwhelmed, work with someone that knows. If you enjoy research, do some research. The internet's an amazing place. And if you are looking for, information, you can find it, right? There are a lot of great brands out there, and I don't know, I know some of them cross over, maybe some of them are different because we're in different countries, but at the end of the day, I am really big on, there's a company here in the US called Quicksilver. A lot of their products are absorbed
Right.
sublingually. They're a liposomal formula. I love that for people that have, a lot
Yeah.
of people have gut issues and we have to worry about digestion and absorption. Well, not so much if it's being absorbed sublingually. So there's other factors like that to take into account too. And quality matters in terms of how
Yeah.
well you're going to utilize it.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, particularly like the magnesium stuff I'd heard about a lot of as well. But yeah, a lot of people hear about the zinc, magnesium, the vitamins, the omegas, all these different things, fish oils. A lot of the time, people hear them. They know they probably should have them, but they don't necessarily know why. And I guess I encourage people listening to this, go and do a bit of research. Go and look into this thing, and like Kimberly said, find out what your body needs. Find out what your body's telling you. And if you don't know, go and see someone who will know.
Yeah.
Like an endocrinologist, a dietitian, people that will have a better idea of knowing what you might be lacking in terms of minerals and supplements and stuff. And then you'll have a better idea of what to supplement with. Now, I wanted to sort of wrap up with the IV therapy, Kimberly, because I know that's something that you do here and that you practice, and it might be a new thing for people here that may have never heard of this. Obviously, it's become popular with various health benefits. Still yet to sort of transition over to this side of the pond, but it will do. It'll become a lot more. Everything always does. But could you tell us a bit more about the role that IV therapy plays in your practice and how it aids in longevity?
The really cool thing about IV therapy is anything you're given intravenously is 100% bioavailable to your cells right now. And so, again, we're not relying on digestion. We're not relying on things passed through a liver that's already challenged or maybe congested and not working super well, getting converted to an active form. IV therapy can really help people get traction in their healing when they're really sick or just when they're trying to optimize their health. We do all sorts of stuff. We do, traditional. Most people are familiar with what's called the Myers cocktail. Just a really awesome nutritional bag. Then there are things we do like high dose vitamin C in conjunction with high dose magnesium. We use methylene blue, NAD plus. We do ozone intravenously, multi-pass ozone. We do a whole slew of different things, and they're used for all different purposes. But they can be really you can get traction with someone's health so much quicker using IV therapy in conjunction with other things.
Awesome. And where can people check out a little bit more of that if they're interested?
Yeah, so they can go right to my website, which is Avita, and it's AVITA-wellness.com. There's lots of good information on my website. You can book an appointment through there. You can book a discovery call or a consult. I'm really active on Instagram. My handle is Kimberly Verbeke Wellness. Those are probably the two best places to find me.
And I'll add them to the show notes, guys. For those of you watching live, I'll pop them on. And for those of you listening back on Spotify or watching back on YouTube, they'll be in the show notes for you to go and check out. Go give Kimberly a follow and go check out her website to learn a bit more as well. Kimberly, what is the most rewarding part for you with helping people take control of their health and longevity? Of this journey of yours, what would you say has been the most rewarding part that you've experienced since you've been doing this?
Just watching people feel better and then get to enjoy their life, right? Getting to enjoy their kids or their grandkids or get back to doing things they love doing. Like, it really makes me happy to see people's quality of life improve. That is fun.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I feel the same. I say a lot that when people walk into my gym and they're stressed, you can see it, they're not feeling great, and they come and do what they've got to do, and then they walk out feeling great, and they look at me and they go, thanks for that, I needed that today. That is far more rewarding to me than someone letting me know that they've dropped £7. I mean, if that's great for them, that's fine, but I would agree with that. That's why I do what I do, in the sense that I enjoy watching. I like seeing people change in front of my very eyes. I mentioned before about the penny drop moments. It's when you see people, they take our advice, they listen to us, and they'll go, oh, okay. But when you actually see the moment where they realise themselves and they see it, that's a powerful moment, I think. That aha moment, we're like, you get it now. Or even when people go, we've mentioned before, when people go, oh my God, so I can eat more food and food that I enjoy and still lose weight and still feel great and strong. I can build muscle and not get big and bulky. I can keep up with my kids. Yes. Yes, you can. And I could have said that to you all day long, but until you see it yourself from practice, that for me is when I feel job satisfaction. Like, yeah, I've done it. There's another one. I've converted another one to realise what we're telling them. Awesome stuff. Thank you for coming on, Kimberly. I appreciate that. It's been great to have someone, as I say, reassure to me the same stuff, the same principles that I operate on, the same ethos, particularly about the protein, the strength training. Like I said, water, sleep, protein, steps. That's where to start.
Got it.
But yeah, like if people are looking forward for that little extra bit, particularly we've mentioned some of the things before, menopause. We talked a little bit about glycemic index. We talk about diabetes and stuff. There may be many things hormonally. There may be some illnesses. People may have some disabilities where you may be requiring some certain minerals, some certain supplementations. Go and find out, because a lot of the time, doctors aren't going to tell you. They're not going to tell you. They're not going to go into. Dietitians aren't always at hand to find out what you're deficient in and what your body might be needing. And in my own experience in these last 12 months, from someone who was fit and healthy to basically survive a very large brain tumour and still be here to tell the tale, I'm telling you now, it's made me search a lot for answers in my body, my immune system. Not just that, I have asthma, eczema, all these atopic conditions, they call it, allergies, immune situations. And I've realised, and it's things I've gone, I can change this. I can, and a bit like you said, it's not reverse my aging, so to speak, but I can achieve longevity. I can get better in the long term, and I can achieve a long, healthier life, and so can everyone listening to this.
Totally.
Awesome. Thanks again. And I've kept you a little bit longer than planned, but that's because I enjoyed everything you had to say so much, and I'm sure I've had people watching it. I've not been able to see any comments from my live stream because I've had to go on YouTube instead of how I normally do it. But I will send people your way, Kimberly, if they have any follow-up questions. I'll send them to your Instagram and then to go and check out your website. So anyone listening to this, if you would like to go over and ask Kimberly any questions, go and give her a follow on Instagram, and go and check out her website as well, and pop over some questions to her. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer. And if you want to know more. All right. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. And enjoy the rest of your, afternoon. My dog's snoring, so I'm going to have to force him to go out for a quick walk and go for his pre-sleep wee.
Nice. I love it.
Thank you. You too.
Good chatting with you.
Take care.